I recently did some comic book adventuring. I was able to make 2 stops in the same day. First to a local shop where I checked out their $1 and $2 bins, and then I headed down to my first actual local comic show in more than a year. Today, I'll show you what I got. Check it out. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name's Chris, and this is Northgarden Comics. So recently, I was out on, one of my comic book adventures on a weekend, and I was able to hit up 2 places on the same day. That wasn't originally my plan. Originally, my plan was to head down to the first local show I've been able to attend in more than a year, not just because it was the first one I could attend, it's the first one that was held in my area. And it was put on by local vendor Most Wanted Comics, and it was held in the city of Bloomington, and there are about 8 vendors there, and it was free to get into, lots of dollar books, and it's a small show, but you can find some good things. And so that was my goal for the day. But the night before I went out, so that Friday night, I checked on social media, and one of the local stores here in the Twin Cities called Comic Book College, I think they may be the oldest store here in the Twin Cities, they posted that they had recently gotten about 7,000 new books that they were going to be replenishing their $1 and $2 comic bins with. And so that became my first priority. I wanted to check out there first, and I wasn't sure which one would be busier, if there'd be a lot of people at either one, so I figured I would go to Comic Book College, see what they had. If it was too crowded, I would have gone down to the show and then come back to Comic Book College. But it turns out my timing was perfect for both locations because it was minimally busy at either one. And so first went to Comic Book College, and I'll show you those books first, and then went down to the show and I picked up a handful of other things. So it's a modest stack here that I got of books to show you, and in just a minute I'll give you a closer look at those. Before we jump into that though, I do want to say, if it's your first time here to the channel, welcome. I'm so glad you decided to check it out. If you like comics, comic related content, please take just a minute, hit that subscribe button. If you see something you like, give it a thumbs up, and please say hi. Let me know your thoughts and questions down below. Now, if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much, because that means you've seen my content and you've come back again. So I kind of poke fun at myself that way, because for any of you familiar with how the YouTube side of things works, I'll see my analytics to see what videos are being watched historically. So I'll see like the last 48 hours, here are the videos that have gotten views and how many. And I have a video that I did, relatively speaking, a long time ago now, and it was a mystery box from Mile High Comics. Only time I ever purchased anything from them, I got one of their 5-pound mystery boxes, and that was like back in, gosh, it must have been like early on, April, May kind of time frame, I want to say, last year. And consistently, that one still gets views every day. So the algorithm has definitely picked that one up, and people are watching that. But I went back and looked at a little bit of that, and I know you hopefully get better with time, but to describe my delivery at the time, definitely had that robotic element. And for any fans out there of the show Big Bang Theory, it felt very Sheldon Cooper-y. The whole, hello, my name is Dr. Sheldon Cooper, and welcome to Fun with Flags. I didn't blink much, I didn't move much, I would hold things up and keep staring. So all that to say, if you've come back and if you've seen some of those older things, then really appreciate you being here and checking this out and engaging. And in all seriousness, I love to be able to connect with people who love this hobby of comic reading and collecting. So glad you're here. Now that we got all that housekeeping kind of stuff out of the way, let's go ahead and dive into these books. All right, so first, like I said, I'm going to show you the books that I got at Comic Book College. And the way they have these bins set up, they have a great selection of back issues to begin with, but I usually hone in on those $1, $2, $3 bins that they have, and they usually have a pretty good selection. It's organized well, and you'll see here, on the tops here, they've got color-coded stickers that they put on all the backing boards, and the green represented the $1 books, and then they have some different colors that represent $2 and $3 books, things like that. And as I was going through, really only 2 titles that I came away with. The first is from IDW's Transformers. This is from a volume called Till All Are One. This was a few years ago now that this title ran. It only ran for 12 issues. I picked up issue 1 when it was new, but I wasn't going to collect it on a regular basis, and I never got issues 2 through 12. It focuses on the events that were going on or taking place on Cybertron in the midst of the 2 other titles that were running concurrently, which were Transformers More Than Meets the Eye, and then just the adjectiveless Transformers. It had been previously Robots in Disguise, and then just dropped that and became just Transformers. But this focused on characters like Starscream, Windblade, Ironhide, and others there on Cybertron. And like I said, never picked those up initially, but then I've always kind of casually kept my eye out and figured, well, maybe someday I'll finish that volume. And I will slowly get them as I've been working on the IDW collected edition oversized hardcovers, but I'm still primarily a fan of the single issues, and Comic Book College had, I think, 8 of the 11 that I needed. So I went ahead and picked those up. This is issue 3, and most of these, they're different covers. This is the subscription cover, and here's issue 4. These have a nice look because they're kind of a painted look to them. Here's issue 5, Metroplex. Issue 6. Some of the scaling is pretty cool. You can see, I don't know who that is down there, but very small compared to one of the Titans. Issue 7. And as I picked these up, they did have 1 or 2 others. I think they had issue 2 that I needed. Maybe that was the only other one that I needed that they had. I left that behind though, because it was, even though it was only $1, it was a lighter cover, like a white cover, and it, you know, you see on new books even, you can see when they've rubbed up against other books, they can start to get some of that black, it just looks dirty on the cover. And so I figured, even though it was just $1, I'm in no hurry to get them, so I would just wait. And so I still need this is issue 11. That's a pretty cool looking cover. So I still need issue 2. There was 1 other gap in there, and then issue 12. But once I eventually find those, then I'll have the full 12 issue run. So happy to have found those all in one chunk at the same time. But I found these first, and so that's 8 books, and that would have cost me $8. And as I was going, I noticed that on their sign, they said, if you buy these green tags, it's $1 a book, but you can get 15 books for $10. So that winds up knocking a third off the price. So instead of $1, they're like 66 cents a piece. And so I was determined to get up to that 15 book minimum so that I could drop that price down. And they didn't have a ton of other things. I will say that at the time I spoke to one of the guys working, and they were still working through getting all 7,000 of those books incorporated into their bins. So it was going to take time. And on the one hand, it would have been great to see all of those at once. But on the other hand, it's kind of nice because now I have reasons to keep going back, because they're going to continue to incorporate those books into the inventory and the stock on the floor. So I'll be able to go back and hopefully find more and more things each time I go. But at this particular first dive into these new books, there wasn't really much else, but I did come across another volume that I'm working on putting together the whole run, and that's Ultimate X-Men from the Marvel's Ultimate Universe. This ran for 100 issues, and I've been working my way through in like 10 issue increments from 1 to 100 to put this together. You can pretty much consistently find these books pretty easily for $1 a piece. If you're lucky, you can get them for 50 cents a piece and in good condition. So this is another one where I'm not in a hurry. I'm going to hold out for good condition copies and only pay like 50 cents or $1 each. But they did have enough of the issues that I need to be able to get me up to that 15 book mark. So that way my price dropped down to the 60 some odd cents a piece. So I pick up issue 86. 87, and I was able to go largely in order with just a couple gaps here. 88. It's always interesting too how they rebag and board. You always get stuff at a bag and board in Comic Book College, but I wonder where these originally came from, because the bag seems new, but look at that. just kind of a basic, almost cardboardy looking, not even white, kind of stock comic book board. I don't know where those come from, if they acquired it that way or if they put that in there somewhere along the way themselves. Here's issue 89. That's a pretty cool looking Storm cover, I thought. Issue 90. Sorry for the reflection here. I can see myself even in the reflection of these books. Skip 91. I like this cover as well, 92. And then they had 93. So I'm down now to, I think, less than, there's maybe about 20 books that I need to complete this volume. I have like 98, 99, and 100. There's a gap between 93 in there that I need to fill, and then I need like the 70s. So this was a case too where even though I'm going up the run in 10 book increments, I jumped because again I was trying to hit that 15 book minimum so that I could have my price drop. So 15 books, $10, good deal. That was my first stop at Comic Book College. Then I headed down to Bloomington to the Eagles Club, which is like a VFW, but it's in a storefront. Actually, there's a bike shop next door, and it's basically like a single slot retail space, long rectangle, one open room. There were about 8 vendors, and most of them had some selection of dollar books. There were some action figures there. There were some, a variety of wall books, but a lot of the dollar books, and that's what I was primarily focusing on. And I purchased books from 2 vendors that day. The first one I'll show you here. I just got 2 books. I don't know this vendor's name. I've probably seen him before, but he had a variety of dollar books that were a mixture of, some were bagged and boarded, some were just unbagged books. So with that, you also get a variety or a mixture of different kinds of condition levels that those books are in. So, and they weren't in alphabetical order. So do I like alphabetical? Yes. But there's always an excitement to non-alphabetical as well, because you never know what you could uncover, and you might stumble across things that maybe somebody going through too fast didn't see themselves. But I looked through his boxes. He also had like some $5 books, and he had some wall books. I only came away with 2 books from his table. They were both in that Transformers genre again. This is G.I. Joe versus the Transformers. It says it's volume 1. This is issue number 4, and the cover artist here says it's M. Brooks, which is Mark Brooks. I don't know if there's more than one Mark Brooks in the comic industry, or if this is the same Mark Brooks that does a lot of Marvel covers these days. But that's a pretty cool wraparound cover with Devastator there in the back and Prime in the front and things. I will say, do any of you collect, or have you collected any of these crossover titles with G.I. Joe Transformers that were done by Image and then DDP or Devil's Due? They went back and forth like 3 or 4 volumes, and I got to admit that when I'm hunting for these books, they're some of the hardest books for me to find, from the perspective of I can see the cover, but there's at least an A and a B cover to every issue of every volume, and it's really hard to tell that number 3, did that come from volume 1, 2, 3, or 4? And there's just minimal differences when you look at them. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I get really confused trying to hone in on, is that an issue that I have, or is that just is it a variant of one that I already have, or is it something I still need? But anyway, that was issue 4. Here is issue 6, and yes, this is the same volume. This is another wraparound cover, which I'll show you here. And these aren't bagged. They were not bagged when I bought them, but they were in good shape. They're, very few, if any, spine ticks on these, no corner damage, things like that. So for $1, I'm happy to have these. I never collected any of these crossovers between G.I. Joe and Transformers when they were coming out. I was sticking with the main things. At this time, I believe this was 2003. So did Dreamwave still have the license at that time, or had they folded? That was right around that transition time when it went from Dreamwave to IDW, who's had the license since then. One fun panel I guess I'll show you here from these, because as I was flipping through, I noticed this. This is the first one. Look at this. You got a battle between Optimus Prime and Megatron, and he just whacked him across the face with his own arm cannon. I don't know. That's a pretty humbling move to be smacked upside the head by Optimus Prime with your own arm cannon. But anyway, that was it from the first vendor. The other vendor I bought from, I actually know his first name. His name is Greg, and I have seen him at multiple shows. I've bought from him multiple times. I actually even got to go to a comic book garage sale that he hosted at his house. I went to this garage sale, just quick side story here. Went to this garage sale, he had a bunch of dollar books, and he had dozens and dozens of long boxes. He had, you walk around to the backyard, and he had kind of like a tuck under garage, and he had tables lined up in there with long boxes on them. Again, pretty much $1 per book. And then if you went out to the back, he was in Minneapolis, and a lot of the homes in Minneapolis have the home, and then you have a separate garage on an alley. And so he had a garage that was separate, and in the garage he had a bunch of other boxes as well, and he had an entire wall of that garage that was long boxes of comics. It was overwhelming, to say the least. He wasn't selling all those, but just to see them was incredible. And this is one of those stories that kids don't do as I did. Stranger danger, because this was the first time I'd ever met Greg in person and learned his name. But he's just some guy. I'm going to his house. He doesn't know me, I don't know him, and I'm checking out his books, and we got to talking, and he's like, oh yeah, you want to see the other books I have? But those were in his house. Now, of course, kids never go into the stranger's house, but I was like, sure, I'd love to see him. So we went through that tuck under garage. He took me to his basement, and it was like at least two different rooms, but he had dozens more long boxes of comics. So just an incredible sight to see that many comics, at a private residence, not in a store or at a convention or something like that. So truly impressive. And I know it's not all his private collection. Those are all things, inventory that he's working through selling, but just a fun little story there. But stop by his booth, and he, again, had dollar books, $2 books, and then, other priced as marked books. And I got 8 books from his table that day in no particular order. Interestingly, though, I'm starting here with another G.I. Joe Transformers. This is G.I. Joe versus the Transformers, but you notice this is G.I. Joe Transformers 2, and this is Devil's Due Publishing. And if I remember correctly, the way they worked these from a publishing perspective was Image Comics went first. They did a 6-part miniseries, and then it jumped over. Devil's Due did a 6-part miniseries, and then jumped back to Image, and then it kind of ping-ponged back and forth there a few times. A question I will ask you, the viewer, because I don't know, and I'm kind of embarrassed to say it, but who is that on the cover holding the Statue of Liberty? The color scheme I don't really recognize. These are pretty stand out looking, like you should be able to identify from there. The only characters that are coming to mind that he reminds me of are like Scorponok, but it doesn't seem quite right because he's got hands and no claws. But then Six Shot, who's got those wings that shoot up, but I don't really know who that is. So if you're watching and you know who that character is, let me know down in the comments. But got issue 3 of that volume, again for $1. Then jumping over here, here's an issue from Daredevil Volume 1. This is number 219, just filling in holes here when I can with, good condition books. And by good condition, I mean nice white up by the corner box, and the number down here in where the UPC would be on a newsstand edition, or by Spidey there for a direct edition. Look for lack of damage on the cover, and then I try to get as high a quality interior pages as well as white as I can get. These Daredevils from this time period seem to be notorious for yellowing and just kind of getting off color and getting ink transfer as the pages have rubbed together for years and years. So I try to get them in the best condition I can, and I'm working on Ann Nocenti's run of Daredevil Volume 1. So just kind of slowly piecing those together as I find them. So that's the only Daredevil I got. This was kind of random because it's just a one-off. I'm not putting together this whole volume, but this is from Avengers Volume 1. This is issue 239, and I got this because of this Dave Letterman appearance on the cover and inside. I have watched a lot of Dave Letterman in his later years, but when he was first on the air, I don't know if he was on the air before I was in high school, but at least while I was in high school, which is like late 80s, early 90s, for a long time, I didn't even know who this guy was. I was some weird high school student that you know, with all the activities and things I was in, I was going to bed like 9 o'clock every night, even as a senior. So definitely wasn't one of the cool kids staying up late watching David Letterman, but kind of fun to get that little appearance on the cover and interior. And I think this has got a little bit of value, but he had it for $1 and it's in good shape, so I figured why not? That's a fun pickup. Then these other ones that I got from him, these are the only ones left? Yeah, I guess so. There's 3 more. These are all from Thor, first volume. This is issue 310. I got this, good condition, good price, and it's Thor. That's really the only significance to it. I'm not working on putting together the full Thor run. If anything, I would like to get the Walt Simonson era, all of those issues, but the earlier, you know, kind of late Bronze Age, go back to bronze and then silver. If I can find those in decent condition and a decent price, then I won't leave them behind. And I've said this multiple times, I'm always a sucker for most of the books that are in this era where it had that Marvel Comics group banner across the top. But this was just in good shape. It's a newsstand. And yeah, so I figured why not, what the heck. You know, Mephisto's being talked about everywhere these days with the MCU TV shows going on, but there's an actual Mephisto appearance. So got issue 310. And then 2 others, as I just mentioned, I'm working on Walt Simonson's run of the volume. Here's issue 356, which interestingly, he wasn't here for. He didn't do this one. And Hercules even draws attention to that. It's just stand aside, Thunder God. It's hard to read this. I'm reading it backwards in the camera screen here. Walt Simonson is on vacation, and so art thou. So a little bit of a break there. Not technically part of Art Simonson's run, Walt Simonson's run, but it was in good shape. Again, these Thors at this time, keys aside, because the keys you spend more on, but you can find a good number of the Walt Simonson era of Thor in the dollar bins, but they're usually with some damage. Again, usually you see it up here or down here. The whites don't stay very white and the pages definitely get off color. So when I can find these in good condition, I'll grab them. But again, no hurry, just to do it over time. This is another run probably as I start to dip my toes into the world of omnibus collecting. I just recently got my first omnibus ever, which was the X-Men Inferno omnibus, and I'm about 150 pages into that one reading it. Loving that. So I'm definitely going to be doing more omnibus collecting, and this is a volume I would consider getting as an omnibus. I don't know if it's 1 or 2. Maybe they'll do that as a reprint at some point here, but the Walt Simonson run. And here's Mighty Thor number 360. Again, good condition, the colors on the cover, and this is old enough. I'll get this into Mylar as well, and that'll present really nicely. So happy to have found that issue as well. All right, that's going to do it for me, and that's going to wrap up this comic book adventure, showing you the books I picked up at Comic Book College, and then also at the, what do they call it, the Eagles Minicon, recently here in Minneapolis, Twin Cities area. I will put information to Most Wanted Comics, Comic Book College, and an upcoming show here in the Twin Cities called Spring Fling that'll be on May 15th, 2021, up the northern part of the Twin Cities area at the Mermaid Convention Center. I'll put information for all those good things down below for anybody watching locally. Now, if you're not quite ready for the YouTube fun to be over, I have hand-selected a couple videos here for you to check out. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.